So what is Fuckup Nights?
Aranova sing շատ ուրախ եմ այսօր հոսենք, միշտ կսեմ Երևանը այն սիրած քաղաքս աշխարհի մեջ, շատ ուրախ եմ որ հոսենք ամենուդ ashkshare. Guys, thank you very much for being here. My name is Henri Arslanian, and really my passion and my focus in life is the future of the financial industry and the future of finance. And normally I give talks on Bitcoin and blockchain and technology. Today is going to be one of the rare times that I'm going to talk about something else. So very excited to be with you all today. And I know that all of you have other things to do, so thank you very much for being with us so we can share some of our failures with you. My goal today is very, very, very simple. I just want to share with you some of the stories that we went through, and hopefully, after what we discussed, hopefully some of the things that I say could be relevant. Probably some of the things I'll mention, you'll say this is completely stupid. What is this guy talking about? What does this guy think he is? But I'm hoping at least from my talk there'll be one or two elements that you find quite useful or quite interesting from that perspective. Sounds good? Excellent. So I'll start off, first of all, quickly, a big background about myself. This is me when I was a kid. I come from a typical Armenian family. I was born in Montreal, Canada. My dad is from Lebanon. My mom is from Syria. I grew up in a typical Armenian family. This was my first day at Armenian school. By the way, you can see I was not born with white hair, So that's how we started off. And then obviously I grew up there in Montreal, had a very normal lifetime. I ended up being a lawyer. This is actually the day I became a member of the bar. We wear this very stupid clothes. But really, this is how I started. I was having my career there in Canada. But one day I started to realize, you know what, there's a lot of disruption in the world, and I really do not think the future is in North America. I find it very interesting for me that I see a lot of people now move to North America. I did the exact opposite. I moved to China. I was watching a documentary one day called The Rise of a Chinese Dragon. I was like, wow, this thing is crazy. I bought a book called Chinese for Dummies. Literally, I learned to count from 1 to 10 on the flight. It's a long flight. There was an old lady. That's all the conversation we were having. There was no wiki at a time. So that's what we were having. And that's what we ended up being in China. This was like a while back. China now is very common. It's very normal for people to go to China. At the time, everybody made fun of me, especially my Armenian circles. You can imagine people were like, why are you going to go eat with chopsticks? Ha, 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 ha. This was before the Olympics. It was pretty crazy. I remember my first day in China, I was taking a taxi and I was wearing shorts. Suddenly I feel somebody touching my legs. And, it's a bit stupid now, but basically the taxi driver was, as an Armenian guy, I'm quite hairy. He was playing with my hair because obviously, he was going like this. So this was really good old days of China. But basically I went there. We had a lot of great times. There were really memorable stories there. We had a really good time. I spent time in China. I did a master's in Chinese law, learned Chinese, did some time there. But also a lot of bad memories as well. Some stupid stuff we were doing or singing Chinese songs, But more of the stories, was really kind of the background of how all these things happened. Graduated there. But ended up in Hong Kong. So, went there in Hong Kong. My first day there was Lehman Brothers Day, the biggest day, the start of the financial crisis. I started my career as a lawyer in Hong Kong. It's a city where I live. It's a city that I call home today. I started as a lawyer, was doing a lot of the lawyer stuff, then moved to finance. And that's where it started. At a time, you got to imagine it was after the financial crisis. You could order Uber in 2 seconds. We were used to having great apps and having this customer experience. But banking was really, really bad. Even some of you guys here, I'm sure if I ask you if you like your bank, probably you don't, right? It was really, really bad at a time. Things were going good, but really I was feeling that this is not normal. The way that banking is operating does not make any sense, And this is why I started really questioning it. Really said, why are we doing this? And at a time, you got to understand it was a financial crisis, right? Things were still pretty bad. But really started questioning, trying to change the status quo, how things were going on. But man, I really got a lot of criticism. For example, I will never forget one of these examples where we're really trying to push, say, hey, why are we doing things like this? Or start talking about FinTech. At the time, it was a brand new term. I remember, when we're seeing technology, we're starting to see FinTech come out. I used to organize the first FinTech dinners in Hong Kong. I couldn't get 8 people around a table. I used to invite some of my friends, pay them a dinner so I don't lose face in front of other people. And really what was starting is I was talking about people at work. Say, hey, there's thing FinTech, man, we can do things better. And I got a letter from one of the big bosses of the bank, say, hey, stop talking about the stupidities of FinTech. We don't want to hear about innovation in banking. Sounds pretty crazy now, if you think of this. It was not a long time ago. But also one day, in big companies, you have town halls. We had a big town hall at the bank I was working at. And I raised my hand, but the chairman of the investment bank was there. And I said, Mr. Chairman, I really disagree with you. I believe our competitors are not the other banks. Our competitors are Alibaba, Tencent, and Amazon, who may enter into finance. There was silence. Everybody started to laugh. The chairman of the investment bank said, Mr. Arslanian, nothing left to be disrupted in banking right now. Nothing left to be disrupted in banking. The last disruption was dark pools that happened 10 years ago. Next question. Sounds pretty crazy now. My big boss came to see me, put him in his room and said, Henry, never ask stupid questions like these. You're embarrassing yourself. So this is how it really hurt me at a time. You know, I'm very ambitious, working hard, and you're really trying to do the right thing, and really you're getting this kind of pressure for organizations. And this is why I said, you know, if this is really the case, I should do it on my own. You know, I left the company. Everybody was laughing at us at the bank at a time. You know, it was very, very bad. My nickname became FinTech Henry because things like these were happening. And then I said, you know what, screw this. We're going to go on and join a startup. I found this tech entrepreneur. I thought his idea could be quite good. And actually tried to help him to bring this business and try to help the startup inside of banks. But man, we failed. I thought I was going to be able to bring this technology as a startup, bring inside the banks. Whoever has done B2B sales in banks knows it's very difficult. I was fired 1 year minus 1 day, which I couldn't get my ESOPs even. I helped this company raise $2 million US, and everything was gone in a year. But more than that, it was actually personal failure because I was really advocating, thinking, man, with startups, we can disrupt the banking, we can change banks, help banks. But it was very tough. Obviously, it didn't work. And then I really started questioning myself. So maybe, am I crazy? Are we going to really see innovation in finance? Or maybe I'm just a crazy guy who thinks, you know, this is the way it is. And I remember that day actually that happened. I was actually, ironically, on a flight to Yerevan to wedding. And I was the entire flight on Emirates from Hong Kong to Dubai, and I was really just reflecting and thinking, see, maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe I should just go back to banking, do what everybody is doing. Friday afternoon, leaving, relaxing, have a good weekend, enjoy time with friends and family. But I said, you know what? Maybe that's not the way to do it. I should probably double down on this idea. You know, despite of the failure, and it was quite public, you know, we should maybe continue on this. And actually, I believe that us, individually, despite all these failures, we can actually lift up and change an entire industry. And that's where we started. You know, first time I started with universities. I started teaching the first FinTech university course in Asia. Many in the media would say it was the first in the world. This was 5-6 years ago. Many of my curriculum was available. Many of the university online courses that many of you may have seen are actually based on my curriculum that I launched. But then we realized there's a physical limitation on how much we can teach. So we launched the MOOCs. You know, I started teaching and recording a lot of videos that we're having. Today, the online FinTech course that we have, TEDx, is the world's most watched, most followed FinTech course. There's over 40,000 registrations from 200 different territories around the world. Try to actually change this grassroots level. We started also doing it then from at the broader level. So if, okay, universities are one thing, we should start training the broader public about it. You know, I did a TED talk on FinTech. FinTech and the impact on the future of banking. That to this day is the most watched FinTech video on YouTube. Again, started from an idea only a couple of years ago. Really, so all these things were happening, then we started building the ecosystem. Again, many people said this is not possible. This is not going to be able to do it. We've started, you know, a FinTech Association of Hong Kong from zero. Now we have 1,500 members. I was elected the chairman as well, the first chairman to lead the organization in Hong Kong, one of the biggest ecosystems we have today. But also go very public as well, be an advocate of this. You know, I joined PwC where I started really running this FinTech business, doing a lot of this crypto business. When I launched a crypto app practice, people told me, hey, Henry, do your Bitcoin thing. Good luck. And obviously now it's become a global success story. Spending a lot of time on the press and media trying to talk to people and really showcase what the future of banking can be about. You know, and men, we used to get laughed at so many times. So many times we'd go on TV and actually the interviewers would ask us questions saying this is actually not possible. Again, it sounds a bit crazy now, but this was the way it was happening. Or in my recent book now, I said I'm going to write a book on the future of finance, that how we can actually educate people on the impact this is going to have. We believe right now that over the next couple of years, 1 finance job out of 3 will disappear. You know? And this has had a serious impact on many, many cities around the world. You know, from your tellers that you have at banks, or even the back end that we have that is completely hasn't changed since the 1970s or 80s. You know, for a lot of you that use an ATM here, 95% of ATM transactions rely on COBOL, which is a programming language built in the 1950s and 60s. So it's really crazy. So my book right now, I'm very proud to say, just became an Amazon Global Top 10 bestseller in finance. You know, this bestseller of the publisher this year. So really trying to share these things and doing a lot of these things that we've been saying over the last couple of months. And also then social media. We mentioned before social media as well. You know, whenever I started said, how can we share a lot of this passion with people around the world? I started writing LinkedIn articles. Then I realized, okay, maybe we should really share this with the broader people, especially in emerging markets or countries where people do not see this. You know? Now I spend a lot of my time in the Middle East, in Africa, in the parts of Asia where they don't get the chance to have conferences like WCIT that come every day. And obviously this has become quite popular as well. You know, like I was mentioned before, now we have like over 500,000 following in LinkedIn that has become basically my own TV channel. You know, ideas that we want to give away, if I want to share ideas or talk about people, we don't need to rely on a lot of the traditional mediums. We can just use social media. Started doing these weekly videos called Crypto Capsules, which is basically in 1 minute what is happening around the world right now in the blockchain and crypto space. Again, for any of you who's busy, who wants to learn, a good way to learn about what's happening in 1 minute. All these videos that you see in 60 seconds takes me between 4 to 6 hours a week to produce. We'll do one actually from Yerevan this week. So a lot of this educational stuff, you know. Then I said all these speeches that we're giving around the world, how can we take them actually and show them to people around the world? So right now, most of my speeches that I give around the world are actually taped, and excerpts are shown to people on LinkedIn for free to actually be able to attend, even if they don't have a chance to attend events like these in person. So a lot of these things were happening around the time. So what happened over the years, my personal view on this, about all this, the events that took place, one was sharing. One thing we realized was actually, if you really want to be successful and actually make a change, was actually if you share for free a lot of the knowledge you have, a lot of the information you have. I still find it unacceptable, for example, that we let students graduate out of universities, including here in Armenia, in finance, for example, or in business schools, with no courses on FinTech, with no courses on crypto or blockchain. I just hired a girl the other day who just graduated from an accounting program. She's just becoming an auditor. And I asked her, how many times did they teach you about blockchain in university? And the answer was 0. It's a technology that will completely disrupt an entire profession, and we're not teaching the next generation on it. So really, I think all of us in our industries, we have a duty to share, especially for the next generation of talent that is coming up. The second one is, really what I call sitting on the edge of your seat. You know, every month, it's in my calendar. Maybe I should have a wakey call for this. I have a 2-hour window that I literally go by myself somewhere, and I just reflect, how am I going to be myself disrupted in the next 30 days? I don't bring a phone. I just have a notepad, and I really think in my business, my personal life, competitors, how am I being disrupted? And I really believe that, I always say that as Armenians, we have to be paranoid optimists. We have to be paranoid survivors. I was giving a speech recently, and I said, in my family, I just had a daughter 2 weeks ago. I just had a second kid literally 2 weeks ago. Thank you. I had the easy part of that job. But, my kids are the 5th generation. They're born in different countries. My great-grandfather was born in current-day Turkey. My grandfather was born in Aleppo, Syria. I went to Turkey, obviously, they had to leave for the genocide. Aleppo, as soon as they built, they had to leave, go to Lebanon. They built their lives. The war started. They had to go to Canada. And Canada had to leave to come to Hong Kong. And, and my kids now are born in Hong Kong. And actually, I don't know what their kids, especially what's happening now in the news, if you've been following, God knows where their kids will be born. Maybe in Armenia, it's possible. But that's what I say, we always have to be paranoid optimists, really always think about how individual will be disrupted as well. And the last point is really hustling. I personally, and it's quite controversial in companies that I work for and others, I do not believe in a work-life balance. I do not believe that you can have in your early life of your career a work-life balance. If you want to have it, you want to have your weekends, enjoy your evenings, great. But I do not believe in the current environment of a world we're moving in, you'll be able to have a work-life balance. It's funny, I find a lot of people who talk about work-life balance, or the guys you see on TV, it's later in their life, when they made their money. Then it's very easy to talk about work-life balance, but I genuinely do not believe this is possible. I think also this brings a lot of other questions around that as well. This has been actually another challenge personally as well. You know, when I started a couple of years ago managing teams, I personally believe everybody wants to work every weekend. Everybody wants to work every evening and holiday. And then you realize that's not the case. You know, that's a lot actually, but on a personal level, there's been a lot of challenges on that side as well. Guys, I'll stop it here, but I just want to say a big thank you for all of you guys here for being us today. It was a pleasure being here for WCIT, and I'll be here for Chain Point as well on Monday and Tuesday at the blockchain conference. But really, a very big pleasure to be back in my favorite city in the world, and hopefully, maybe one day, our home. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Can you please describe one failure you've experienced in your life and how you learned from it?
Yeah, so I'll take the mic. Sorry, guys. No, I think that a couple of, there's a lot of failures. But I think one of them is actually the example of how we completely failed in a startup. And it sounds very crazy right now, but really leaving everything to actually launch something and failing. There's been a lot, I would say, on the personal side, right? I would say the biggest failures I've had recently on a personal side is really expecting people to come up and actually be as committed as you want on certain projects that you're working on. You know, and that's actually been quite interesting as well. You know, like I know many of you, let's say if you're working, you have your business, you have your startup, you believe something, you're 24/7. You're okay with answering WhatsApps and messages at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. at night, you know. But one thing you realize, it's often not the case for everybody. And it's been actually very difficult to do that. I'm dealing with somebody right now, you know, who told me a couple months ago, said, Henry, just to let you know, Friday, 5 o'clock, I stop for the weekend. It's great. You know, I was quite pissed off at them, but I realized, you know what, let these guys do what they want to do. You know, and then, you know, you have to just adapt according to it. So it's been one of those failures on that side. It happened to me last week when I'm working on a certain project, and the person said, I'm sorry, at 5 o'clock I'm clocking off. So what do you do? You know, you find, so I think understanding that personal dynamic of, you know, everybody has their own goals, everybody has what they want to do has been one of the lessons actually that, frankly, I think many of us in the room as well would have probably failed as well. This question, for those of you who didn't hear, was really the importance of media, and when was the importance of the media to actually share a lot of the knowledge on this space. Yeah, so, you know, one of the other keynotes that I give often is that the importance of the personal brand. I really believe that we're moving to an era that each one of you, everybody has to have his personal brand that is stronger than anything else you have. If you're working for a company, you have to be your own business yourself. And this was not possible a couple of years ago. You know, still a lot of organizations globally, a lot of the Fortune 500 do not let their staff talk to media. They don't let their staff deal and have actually big social media presence as well. Because obviously they're afraid that's going to cause issues with the organization. I personally believe that all of us, we have to be our own brand, and you have to be your own social media and media channel as well from that perspective. You know, the impact I've seen, frankly, the way often we started it was just producing quality content. You know, it sounds very stupid now. There's a lot of articles I was giving, explaining to people how certain elements of FinTech was working, and those really, really got traction. You know, I always find the hockey curve started later on. But to this day, I mean, it happens all the time that we'll go travel somewhere, we'll be somewhere, and you'll have somebody stop you in the street and say, hey, man, you guys changed our life for this and that because of the importance of social media. I believe it's by far. I was speaking at a conference a couple of weeks ago in a part of the world that will remain anonymous now. And the event organizer, I mean, this is a pretty traditional business, came and said, Mr. Arslanian, we don't believe in social media. We actually believe in traditional media, so I'm sorry, we're not interested actually in social media channels. I just gave an interview the other day to a magazine that, believe it or not, I know this sounds crazy, does not even have a website. It's a finance magazine, and I was like, how do you guys reach your audience? And I swear to God, they're like, we send them by post. And then I'm like, well, and then but like, they told me we're still digital because we send them by email attachment. I said, how you track that these guys are still paying your subscription? They're like, oh, we're not able to track it. So there's a lot of stupidities like that, but I really believe this is the opportunity we have right now because of a lot of new tools that we have to each of us to be our own voice and be our own media channel that we have in the world.
Henry, I'm really happy to see you here. So I'm probably sure that the community here do understand how important person is here today. So who we are hosting today. So the question actually is more specific. I would like to address this question to you as a FinTech expert, I would say. So my occupation is I'm working for Oracle, covering this region, and not only for applications, but in parallel, I'm interested in investment funds and venture capital and so on. So mainly the question is, currently there is some tendency that investment funds are do really take into account the artificial intelligence, machine learning when doing their investments, and so there is kind of a tendency that it goes from manual investment to some kind of automatic investment. So I would like to understand how actual this topic is in general. How do you feel that, and how do you see in the future this will come up? Would we have like VCs that are continually investing in some project or everywhere, like automatically, or do you see that anyway our engagement in this is like as a human in general is vital? So this is the question, because we're developing kind of algorithm that is doing this right now. So I'm interested on your opinion. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Great question. I think this is something we can discuss probably afterwards. It's not a really fuck up, but I'll give you a quick answer on this. First of all, I'm not an expert. I always tell anybody, whoever tells you they're an expert in fintech or crypto, you see the door there and you run away. I can tell you I spend 24/7 of my time in this space, and I have no idea what's going to happen 1 month from now. Right? There's so many changes going on. So this question on the importance of people in finance, I find it unacceptable today that we still have so many people working in finance. You know, it's as a user, you are paying fees that you should not be paying. You know, for many of the average users, you know, as you grow in your career, you start saving money. It's very normal for people that up to 1/3 of the money they're saving is going into fees. I mean, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever from that perspective, right? So I think the impact of jobs, it's going to be incredible. You know, I'm hoping the industry will become smaller. But I think what's important for many of you in the room, especially for a place like Armenia, traditionally, people who worked in finance were MBAs. People who studied finance. People started, you know, business. I really believe that the banking or the finance of the future will be designers, programmers, and creative thinkers. Right? The user interface element, the user interface will be way more important than, you know, how we calculate things in the back end. A lot of the financial elements that are done still right now, believe it or not, on Excel spreadsheets within banks, obviously are being completely automated right now. The one thing I would say on the future of finance, and this is another piece of often I find whenever I come to Armenia, for some reason I find everybody's focused on Silicon Valley. A lot of people are focused on Europe. I can tell you in many verticals now of future of finance, where you have to look at is China. China, make no mistake, is about 3 to 4 years ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to finance, fintech. You know, the platforms like Tencent today, Tencent has more than 1 billion monthly active users. 1 user out of 3 uses the app more than 4 hours a day. In many stores right now, if you go in China, there's a sign saying refusing cash is illegal, because it's become completely digital, completely cashless. There's a lot of rumors that next month, China may announce the first central bank digital currency. Imagine like a cryptocurrency issued by the government directly. This is massive innovation going on. In the field of insurance, China is about 10 years ahead. You know, this is why I find it so very interesting when you look at the future of finance, what's happening in places like these. Right now, stuff like facial recognition, expressions that people are using for your risk rating, for your credit rating, for asset management. These are very common right now in China. I think the dilemma we're going to have as a society, as well over a couple of months, will be really ethical questions. You know, how much of you are you comfortable sharing your personal data, you know, to get better discounts or get rebates? For example, you know, as we're moving to IoT and moving to, you know, the future of finance, you know, right now all of you are giving away your data for free to tech companies. That's great for shareholders, but it's not good for you. I'm pretty convinced in our lifetime, you will be compensated for your data. Maybe I have a boring job, I'm a 9-to-5 guy, my data is not worth that much. But maybe Ottoman, he's great, he's an athlete on weekends, his data is worth more than mine. And there's going to be AI algorithms who will be able to actually price his data, and all this will happen in micro payments, and it's only possible in cryptocurrencies. So I think this is one of the benefits we're seeing. The future of finance is very, very exciting, guys. There's a lot of stuff going on. But I really believe, I think, as a holistically, we have to look at parts like Asia. So when I was saying that we have to sit on the edge of our seat, always be paranoid, it also applies to where we're seeing a lot of the stuff that's coming up. Thank you very much, guys, everybody. Happy to be here.